Daf Yomi, Tractate Zevachim, page 83a, top of the page, with the words Vehotzio lemizbeach vehech nisan mahu, and then brought out the blood to the golden altar in the sanctuary and sprinkled the blood there as required. See Leviticus 16:18. But subsequently brought the remainder of the blood in toward the curtain dividing the sanctuary from the holy holies. What is the halacha? Oh, there's a series of questions in the previous Amud. If you want to see them, there's a whole bunch of questions. And on 82b, you just look at the previous video that I made on it, the last Amud. Okay. Hachavada echad makamhu odilo yitzia karina be teku. This is what number teku is this? Wait a moment. I'm going to check. I'll be right back. I'll check what number teku this is. It's good to know because I'm working on that. It's part of my program. Okay, I checked, and it is Teku 219. 219th Teku in the Babylonian Talmud is the one we find in Tractate Zevachim 83a. So Rav explains the sides of the dilemma. Do we say that here the area of the curtain and the golden altar is certainly one place, as they are both in the sanctuary, and therefore the blood should not be disqualified by being brought back toward the curtain? Or perhaps, since we call the taking of the blood to the golden altar going out in the verse, and he shall go out unto the altar, Leviticus 16:18, its return to the curtain should be considered bringing in, and therefore the blood should be disqualified. No answers were found, and therefore the Gemara states that these dilemmas shall stand unresolved. In other words, Teku, the 219th Teku in Shas, in Bavli. Okay, Nichnas lechaper Tanya, Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Nemar Khan lechaper b'kodesh, Nemar lehalan v'chol adam lo yeh b'oel moed v'chol chaper b'kodesh. The Mishnah teaches that the sages disagree as to the halacha in a case where the priest carrying the blood of the sin offering, whose blood placement is on the external altar, entered the sanctuary to atone through sprinkling, but in practice the priest did not actually sprinkle the blood. According to Eliezer, the blood is disqualified, whereas Rabbi Shimon maintains that the blood is disqualified only if the priest sprinkles it in the sanctuary. Concerning this, it is taught in the Braita that Rabbi Eliezer says, it is stated here, in any sin offering whereof any of the blood is brought into the tent of meeting to atone in the sanctuary shall not be eaten, Leviticus 6:23. And it is stated there with regard to the service of the high priest on Yom Kippur, and there shall be no man in the tent of meeting when he goes to atone in the sanctuary until he comes out. Leviticus 16:17. Mal halan bishalo kiper kol bishalo kipel. Rabbi Eliezer explains, just as there with regard to Yom Kippur, the phrase when he goes into atone is referring to the stage when he has not yet atoned. So to here, with regard to the disqualification of blood brought inside the sanctuary, the phrase to atone in the sanctuary is referring to a situation where the blood enters the sanctuary at a time when the priest has not yet atoned. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Nemar Khan, Lechaper v'Nemar lahalan. Yes, parachatas v'sirachatas, Hashem u'va'ez damam lechapel. Malan b'shekipel, Afkan b'shekipel. Conversely, Rabbi Shimon says it is stated here to atone, Leviticus 6:23, and it is stated there with regard to the conclusion of the Yom Kippur, the service of on Yom Kippur, and the bull of the sin offering, and the goat of the sin offering, whose blood was brought into to atone in the sanctuary, shall be taken outside the camp, and they shall burn in the fire. Leviticus 16:27, just as there the phrase to atone is referring to the stage when he has already atoned, as the bull and the goat of Yom Kippur are burned after their blood has been sprinkled. So to hear the phrase to atone is referring to a situation where he has already atoned, whereas meaning merely bringing the blood into the sanctuary does not disqualify it. But my kamiflagi, Mar Sofer Danin Chutz B'chutz, Ve'ein Danin Chutz B'fnim. The Gemara inquires with regard to what principle do Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Shimon disagree. The Gemara explains that one stage Rabbi Eliezer holds that one derives a case of outside, meaning the blood of a sin offering whose blood placement is on the external altar, which may not be inside the sanctuary, from another prohibition of outside, the prohibition against entering the sanctuary, but one does not derive a case of outside from the bull and the goat of Yom Kippur, whose blood is brought inside the sanctuary. Okay, excuse me. Mar Savar, Danin Behema Behema, Ain Danin Behema Be'aldam. And one sage, Rabbi Shimon, holds that one derives halacha involving an animal, a sin offering whose blood placement is on the altar, from another halacha involving an animal and the bull and goat of Yom Kippur, but one does not derive a case of an animal from a prohibition involving a person. Okay. What if standing would help? Let's see. We're holding Yehuda Omer. Cool. Let's see. Stand will work. I kind of fall asleep, so maybe if I stand. Standy. Yeah, let's do that. Let's try the standy. Lyrical standage. Okay, what are we holding here? Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Kulo. Hamezit Pasul Mishikipel, Abishilokipel. The Mishnah teaches that Rabbi Yehuda says, if the priest took the blood into the sanctuary and unwillingly the blood remains fit for presentation, the Gemara infers, but if his taking of the blood into the sanctuary was intentional, is disqualified. The Gemara analyzes halacha. Is the blood disqualified only in the case where he took the blood into the sanctuary and atoned by sprinkling inside the sanctuary, as claimed by Rabbi Eliezer in the Mishnah, or even in the case where he took the blood in and did not yet atone, in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Shimon? Amar Yirmiyah Mimashma Shenemar Esparakatas, it's the Irakatas, Shirvaz Tamam and Moed, the Chabad of Kodesh, Matam Rabbi Yirmiyah says, Rav Jeremiah says, Yirmiyah says that one can cite a proof, one can cite a proof from a Braita for the fact that is stated with regard to the Yom Kippur service and the bull of the sin offering, and the goat of the sin offering whose blood was brought in to atone in the sanctuary shall be taken outside the camp, and they shall burn in the fire their skins and their flesh and their dung, and he who burns them shall wash his clothes. Leviticus 16:27-28. One can ask the following question: why must the verse state, and he who burns? Chatos, Gemara interrupts its citation of the halacha to question is minor inquiry. Why must the verse state, and he who burns? One can answer that this term was necessary for itself to teach that one who burns the bull and the goat of Yom Kippur is thereby rendered ritually impure. You know what? We'll be sitting down. We know that. Sit here. Might just do the Amud tonight. Finish the other Amud tomorrow. One can answer this term was necessary for itself to teach that the one who burns the bull and the goat of Yom Kippur is thereby rendered ritually impure. Rather, this is what the Bryant is saying. Why must the verse state twice sin offering with regard to the bull and the goat? It could have easily stated, stated merely, and the bull and the goat of the sin offering. With the shalom the parasar, shall go in Kippur, machine is not going to buy a base addition with Tamin Begadim. The Bright answers that if the term sin offering had appeared only once, we would have learned only with regard to the bull and the goat of Yom Kippur that are burned in the place of the ashes that they render ritually impure the garments of the one who carries them. From where is it derived that the same applies to other sin offerings that are burned? The verse states sin offering twice to include all sin offerings that are burned. This is the statement of Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Meir Omer, Eno Tzarich, who Omer Besapar Chatas, Besa'ir Chatas. Shein Talmud Lomer Lechaper, Mal Talmud Lomer Lechaper, Limed Al Kol Hamis Kaprim, Shasorfam Mitzameh Begadim. Rabbi Meir says this derivation from the repeated mention of sin offering is not necessary. Now consider the verse. The verse states, and the bull of the sin offering, the goat of the sin offering, shall be taken outside the camp, and there is no need for the verse to state with regard to these offerings whose blood was brought in to atone in the sanctuary. Why must the verse nevertheless state to atone? This teaches with regard to all offerings that atone inside the sanctuary that one who burns them renders his garments impure. Yehuda lechaper lo mashmalei. My time had lo mishum li mi boy legzere shaveh. The Gemara notes, and Rabbi Yehuda does not learn anything from the term to atone. For what is the reason for this? What is the reason for this? It is not because he requires this phrase for verbal analogy to drive that the blood of an external sin offering that was taken inside the sanctuary is disqualified only if the priest sprinkled it in accordance with Peter and Shimon. This answers the Gemara's question, as Rabbi Yehuda evidently follows the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. Hadron Allah calls Zevachim Shinis Arvu. We finished calls Zevachim Shinis Arvu. Continuing on to the next paragraph. Certain unfit items, once they have been placed on the altar, are nevertheless sacrificed. This mission teaches the altar sacrifices altar sanctifies only items that are suited to it. The Tanaim disagree as to the definition of suited for the altar. Okay, Rabbi Yehoshua, correctly, Rabbi Yehoshua Omer, Kol Roy Le'ishim, Im Allah, Kol Roy Le'ishim, Im Allah Lo Yered, Shinemari, Oila, Al-Mokina, Ma Oila Shihi, Roy Le'ishim, Im also Lo Tered, Af Kol Shu Roy Le'ishim, Im Allah Lo Yered. Rabbi Yehoshua says, any item that is suited to be consumed by fire in the altar, for example, burnt offerings and sacrificial portions and other offerings, which are burned with fire, if it is ascended upon the altar, even if it is disqualified from being sacrificed, it shall not descend, since it was sanctified by its ascent upon the altar. It is sanctified upon it, as is stated. It is the burnt offering on the fire upon the altar. Leviticus 6:2, from which is derived just as with regard to a burnt offering which is suited to be consumed by the fire of the altar. If it ascended, it shall descend. So too with regard to any item that is suited to be consumed by fire on the altar, if it ascended, it shall not descend. Color Mizbeach Imal on the rage. Nemar, he Ola, Amokta, Amizbeach, Ma'ola, Shihi, Roy, Mizbeach, Im also no serid, Av Kol, Davar, Shahu, Roy, Mizbeach, also loyal. Rabban Gamliel says, with regard to any item that is suited to ascend upon the altar, if it is not typically consumed, if it is ascended, it shall not descend, even if it is disqualified from being sacrificed. As it is stated, it is the burnt offering on the pyre, on the altar, from which is derived, just as with regard to burnt offering which is fit for the altar. If it ascended, it shall not descend. So too, any item that is fit for the altar, if it ascended, it shall not descend. Ein bein different Rabban Gamliel of Yehoshua, Ela Damin Nechasim, Rabban Gamliel Omer Lo Yerdu, Yehoshua Omer Yerdu. The Mishnah comments. The difference between the statement of Rabban Gamliel and the statement of Rabbi Yehoshua is only with regard to disqualified blood and disqualified libations, which are not consumed by the fire but do ascend upon the altar. As Rabban Gamliel says, they shall not descend as they are fit to ascend upon the altar. Rabbi Yehoshua says they shall descend as they are not burned on the altar. Shimon Omer Zevachim Psulin, and the Chasim Shem Zevach Puzzle Afilu Zebsulin Zevach Lo Yered and Chasim Yerdim. Shimon says whether the offering was fit and the accompanying libations were unfit. For example, if they became ritually impure, or if they were brought outside their designated area, or whether the libations were fit and the offering was unfit, rendering the accompanying libations unfit as well. And even if both this and that were unfit, the offering shall not descend, as it was sanctified by the altar, but the libations shall descend. That's the Mishnah, and the top of a B, Daf Beis is starts the Gemara, so we'll start that next time. Ezer Hashem.